Welcome to your favorite YouTube channel, Cartoonist Kayfabe. My name is Ed Piskor.
I'm Jim Rugg.
Jim, what week is it?
9/21.
We had a great heap of videos this past week. So much of the material came to us by way of Baltimore Comic-Con. Shouts to Mark, Nathan, and crew for being so hospitable to us. But man, we looked at some good stuff. Some great rarities.
Yeah, a little tip of the cap to Jason Hamlin as well, lending us a video that went up yesterday. Yeah, it's a fun week. A lot of stuff. It's nice when you have those weeks because it's almost like whatever the lists are that we have floating around on our phones or the books that we have sitting in boxes that are pulled for future episodes. It's almost like improv. Like, here's a bunch of new stuff that wasn't on the radar a week ago. It just shows up in the magic box coming home from Baltimore.
Yeah, the best of a mail week becomes that sort of thing too, where oh man, this has to be an episode next week, and we get so excited about it, and very often we're right. Very often the stuff that we pull very high on the sort of what do you call it, man? The interactivity with the audience, man.
Right.
They agree.
It's been interesting because like we showed 2 Jeff Darrow videos last week.
Yeah.
And I feel like I don't want to say we've exhausted the Jeff Darrow library, but we've looked at a lot of Jeff Darrow stuff over the course of this show and still keep finding things.
Yeah.
Like there's a Darrow piece, en route to us
Two.
that I haven't seen before. Yeah, you're right, two. Yeah. So it's kind of interesting. It makes me think if you're a fan of some artist in particular, doing those deep dives, like really going at it as a completist,
Right.
It's amazing the stuff that's out there, whether it's weird portfolios, unusual editions of the work, in terms of reprints and oversize and original art and all these different ways to, like, I don't know, celebrate the art or artist that you like or character, whatever it is. It's just kind of this mind-blowing experience this show has been in terms of the more I dig into the boxes, and I'm staring off camera here, everyone, at a shelf of long boxes of Ed's comic books here. But the more I dig into those boxes, it's like the more I discover in a way that doesn't really, it surprises me. I feel like I have been pretty deep in comics for a long time, and to be pulling out like constantly new stuff that it's like, I had no idea this existed. Right. This is a new artist to me. I don't know. Like it's amazing. It's just not what I would have expected when we started doing this.
When we were at Baltimore, there were people coming up who, there are way more Cartoonist Kayfabe lifers than I realize or respect, and I have to acknowledge that. There are people who've seen every video. We've got maybe 1,500 videos live today, and there are lots of people out there who've seen every single last one of them, man. So shouts to them for their support. Gratitude is a big thing that's been in my mind this past week, so super grateful for the audience. But people came up to us, and I don't know if you fielded this question often, but I fielded it maybe 3-4 times over the course of the weekend. Are you guys exhausting everything? Like, you're going to have to start winding down? And I just started laughing and was like, dude, it's infinite. It's infinite.
I'm ready to expand my storage space.
Yeah. Yeah, totally, man. It's totally infinite. And just the experience of being at that convention kind of bolsters what you're saying, because people were bringing out works of mine that I never talk about, that are damn near 20 years old, that I forgot about, and I'm like, man, I haven't signed one of these in maybe a decade, so it's like we have that material.
Yeah, that's fair. That's true. Yeah, I've started going through like those comp boxes and things. I have, like you say, 20 years of those things, and started pulling those out for shows this year. And it's stuff that it's like, I don't even remember drawing this or doing that cover or whatever. Yeah, it's I guess that's what just life, how you can remember everything in 25-year career.
James Easterly in the chat room says, go full Warren Bernard. Do you understand that if you mention a guy's name 3 times, he's going to show up on the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel? Right?
That is true.
Yeah, we got
be careful what you ask for out there. You might manifest.
We got a big day today, and Uncle Warren's going to be coming through. So King Kayfabers, you're in for a treat. If you hit the link at the top of the chat room there, man, you could join the Patreon and become a subscriber, support the channel that way. If you become a King Kayfaber on that Patreon, what happens is we cut the camera here, we set up in another part of the studio, and we pretty much have a full blast live stream recording session of our recording sessions of each episode, and in between each of those, is an episode that's almost dedicated directly to the King Kayfabers who support us the most. And when you have an extra guest in the house, that adds to the conversation.
Yeah, I was going to say, we often say that extra episode or so is, takes place in those recording sessions. But whenever Warren, I haven't talked to Warren in person, it's been months.
Yeah, probably 6. I think he comes to town every 6 months. And
yeah. So it's a lot of catching up. It really is we probably could easily cut together a bonus episode's worth of material from just talking to him in between shows. Should be exciting, too. I mean, he's coming off of SPX weekend. I'm sure he's got all kinds of stories from that. It's got to be maniacal building up to that thing the week or two beforehand.
Yeah.
I'm sure afterwards it's just sleep for 3 days.
Yeah, because even I talked to him, on Tuesday or something. And he's like, I was like, yeah, are you cool? Are you chilling? He's like, it doesn't end for me until Monday evening, because it's Monday where he had us at the house.
Right.
So he's bringing a new group of dudes to the crib to show off the collection, and it's a massive collection. And he's been gracious enough every 6 months or so to come through the offices and bring a grip of his materials to show off. So we're gonna have a pretty wild. Once again, we put our pull lists, our episode ideas to the side. Have Uncle Warren come in, drop some science, and it creates a situation where we can have a conversation that you and I typically wouldn't, based on subject material, based on age and experience and wisdom. The guy has some years on us.
And I feel like we too often take for granted how many kayfabe viewers have been around for a while.
Oh, yeah.
But anybody that doesn't know Warren Bernard, his specialty is World War II comics and collecting. So often we feature episodes of Golden Age or Silver Age books, things that we just don't have access to. Prohibitively expensive books in some cases.
Oh, yeah.
But it's definitely, his collection is rich in areas that we don't have.
Yeah.
And so, it's one of the ways to bolster this channel in terms of just comics history and looking at just how wide that history really is. And Warren brings a lot of that to the game. So, yeah, it's always fun when he shows up, because it's definitely conversations we wouldn't have on our own.
What we're describing, essentially, it's the feedback loop. We've gotten together, and Wizard episode was the driving engine at the beginning of the channel. We just did the 5-year anniversary of Wizard this past Sunday, I should say. And we're like, let's rest that for a little while. And the succubus, the seductress that is Wizard magazine, I was like, let me just take a look at the cover for the next one and see what the heck that even is. Fucking full painted Masamune Shiro Ghost in the Shell image, and I'm like, oh man.
That's when you think you're out.
Yeah, dude, totally. But what's interesting is I never had that issue, I don't think, because they do the 2 different covers, and surely Ghost in the Shell is not going to be at the Piggly Wiggly. That's going to the comic shops. So I don't know what the sort of superhero, more popular image is for that cover, but I do remember it started getting spotty. You weren't finding Wizards in the grocery store as often at that point in the game. It was starting to lag more and more. So my collection started to get spottier and spottier when the materials were coming out. So that's part and parcel of that bust that was kind of happening at the time.
It makes me wonder why. I wonder if it's there were fewer outlets to find Wizards. Maybe the flea market people were drying up, the bakery that you used to buy comics at. These things that were sort of just a little bit invested. I wonder if those were going away by this point.
I think the direct market was just fine, but when it's at Shop and Save, they are a part of that churn of the newsstand. So it's that, print up 200,000 to sell 100,000 or whatever, and I think that they were moving away from that that system because it certainly was there was a spot for it, and certainly Hero Illustrated might even still be coming out at that point. So there was a spot for that kind of material, but it started to dry up a little bit. And I was thinking about the modern day, because we have a bunch of new books coming out ourselves, and the numbers just kind of came in with the hip hop omnibus. Once again, gratitude is the word of the week, and I'm super, super thankful to the Kayfabe audience for spreading the word, for ordering the books, because the numbers came back beautiful, and I'm very excited about that. It's Christmas for everybody. very rare is it that Santa Claus gets to celebrate the Christmas too, man. But the little elf that was making the toy is going to be very happy. And when the numbers came back, it was very fascinating because the diamond numbers, which 100% sold, they don't come back, no returns. The number was a little bit low, and I'm like, oh man, that's whack. But then I realized that most comic shops, I think every comic shop in town, and I imagine that that's a microcosm of the wider comic book world, they have 4 or 5 different accounts. It's the strip mall, fanboy proprietor who gets through Diamond exclusively, and that's it. Or the comic book distributors, and that's it. Most good comic shops have the accounts with Baker and Taylor, Norton, Penguin. I mean, you got to have Penguin now, I guess, right? But you know what I'm saying. You got to have these other accounts. So I'm like, well, what are those numbers? And it was, and I'm like, okay, all is right with the world, because you might get a better discount with those publishers. I mean, those distributors or whatever they're called, booksellers. And there is the opportunity to return those. So those are not necessarily completely sold, but I have faith. And with stuff like that, it doesn't come back often. It usually damages that will be returned in exchange for a clean copy, which is pretty cool, man. So once again, got to thank you guys so freaking much.
It's interesting to think that the comic book stores order volume through book distribution, because I don't know that they're counted that way. Whenever we talk about 2 or 3 years ago, it shifted. The biggest comics, I don't know, dollar signs were coming through the book sales channels, but those can still be the direct market. It's just not the direct market distributors. Yeah.
By direct market, you mean comic shops.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Primarily Diamond, and at this point, I forget what the other distributor is.
Yeah.
But regardless, whenever that shifts, whenever that shift happens, I remember a couple years ago thinking okay, 1986 we see the shift from newsstand to direct market.
Yeah.
Now we're seeing direct market to booksellers, but those booksellers, many of them are still comic book shops.
Yes. I think the semantic conversation that we're having really is, in my usage of the word, direct market means sold and is not coming back, basically, which is Diamond or Lunar, or I think there's one other one, but I guess that's Penguin.
Yeah, it is. And I think there's actually different divisions for the comic book sales part of Penguin and the book sales.
So the title of today's episode, The Major Problem with Superhero Comics, been continuing to read the Carl Barks Conversations book, which is just, this is a great way to end a night. When powering down to hear words directly from the man himself. And there are gems and gems in here. I think the interviews, they go into the 90s, and I think he lived to 2000. Yeah. Born 1901 to 2000. Wow. Good 99-year run, man. Bless his heart. They were asking him about putting his comics together and how it immediately feels like a world, and how there's very little continuity, and stuff that's established in one comic, it doesn't carry on into future episodes. There's not a whole bunch of baggage put on the golden helmet and things like this. That was actually for Don Rosa later on to use the old old Duck stories and then create further adventures and things. But he's a comic book dude. It's so clear when you hear him talk in these interviews. And one interview from the 60s, he's talking about those Marvel comics of the day that would have the asterisks, editorial boxes, and Thor showing up in a Spider-Man and all that kind of thing. And it's juxtaposed with questions that are coming his way about how impressed the interviewers were when you would get Scrooge McDuck in the comic, or Gladstone Gander, or Gyro Gearloose, and in very short order understand exactly what that character is, what his motivations are, without any exposition. And that's when Carl Barks gets into the problem with superhero comics, is the over explanation of everything and building continuity and forcing kids to buy a bunch of books to understand a broader story and stuff. And this is in the 60s. You know, what did we
That's
have?
so funny.
What did we have back then? Maybe the Galactus trilogy?
Right. Yeah, that's funny to hear because it feels like from the 80s on, it's been nothing but crossovers and
Yeah.
people criticizing them and buying them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's all your faults, man.
That's an interesting observation on his part early.
Yeah, very very early. Like the Marvel universe is just setting up, and he's talking about it in quaint terms. Oh, these new Marvel comics that are coming out. But I thought that was very very instructive, you know. And you could blame the surrealism of you know, it's talking ducks going through adventures and creating a system where he can just kind of do that. You could just, you know, take for granted that this character is extra lucky, so you show a couple examples of that. But a superhero comic, a guy putting on a cape and flying around, is nothing if not surreal. You know, it's damn near Terry Gilliam. So those rules can still apply. You don't need a duck bill to be able to do that. And we often have said it, that the like the Batman Adventures comics, and we did an episode of Superman Adventures written by Scott McCloud. They were the best Batman and Superman comics coming out from DC Comics at the time of their publication. And I think it's a bit of that Barksian stuff, where you just understand that Bullock is, you know, the grizzled detective that wants to sort of apprehend Batman. You establish that, and you could do it cleanly, and in a way that's not, remember the time we blah blah blah, or something like this. And that also gets back to some interviews and things I've seen with Jim Shooter, where very famously every issue is somebody's first issue. You can find heaps of interviews with him where he says stuff like, you know, everybody remembers that part, but the writers don't tell you the part where I told them that you don't have to make it lousy to establish your characters, which is exactly what Barks does. Time and time again. A 30, 40-year career of drawing these duck comics, page and a half a day for decades, and he always finds ways to establish these characters that's never reused.
Yeah, I think also you mentioned him being a comic book guy.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the benefits those Batman, like the Batman Adventures and Superman Adventure kind of comics have, is that they were an issue. Like that was the unit. You know, it wasn't
there's
four of these makes a book or six or, you know, all these crossovers. Like you would sort of get it. It would be presumably satisfying experience in itself. And taking that away really hurts the format. And that's become an issue. And by the 90s, when they were doing those animated, the Batman, Superman kind of stuff, the majority of those comics were not like, here, you bought an issue, you're going to get like your complete stories, you know, moment there. Same with Shooter. Whenever every comic was somebody's first comic, you could walk away and you could kind of evaluate it. Maybe the writers did a lousy job, but at least you would have a sense of like, okay, I know this character, I got a story with them. It just isn't that way now with a lot of comic books.
Right, and
it's very weird.
And then he would do, say, 5 issues of singular comics, or maybe one issue will have like 2 or 3 stories or something like that from different artists. And those are often the memorable pieces.
Right. From a creative standpoint, that would be, I think, beneficial to the person doing it. Maybe not faster. You know what I mean? If you get into this thing of like, I'm going to do 3 stories in a year and break them up into 4-parters, probably a little quicker to write that way than to write, I ended up doing 7 stories because I've got 3 standalones in between those.
It's a very withholding thing that I notice, like with the big superhero comics of the day, because of that decompression. When Jack Kirby hit his stride, and the man was in his 40s, by the way, doing 5 pages a day, so there's a little speed there. It is collaborative when it comes to the superhero stuff. The ideas and concepts that he would introduce in a single issue is spread out over 6 issues and stuff now. Like it's been that way for 20 years, 25 years. So it's very withholding from the creator, and it's almost an internal problem where I identify it as like the writer. It's like, this idea is gold, and like I don't know if another one will come in a month or 6 months. So like let's milk this thing, and the end result is that the reader has to pay 40-50 bucks to get a complete story and serialized little issues.
I've become very anti monthly deadline in the last, I don't know, 6 months, maybe a year. It's come up with other people who have kind of planted that idea on me, and I have responded and agree that this is really I think it's a point that hurts monthly comic books a lot, that deadline being the most important thing. So to your point, as like a writer maybe getting an idea and being like, this is good for a graphic novel's worth of material, I can make it fit. I'd put some of that on editors too. It's a lot easier for an editor to look at a story and be like, yep, the story's approved and that's 5 issues.
Yeah.
Rather than like each month I got to go in and really get into the nuts and bolts of your 3-act structure here and your beginning, middle, and end of everything. Why not give me 5 issues that are basically one story, and I can look it over and give you an approval on the story?
So we'll call it laziness. When we were looking at the Stan Lee documentary, there was that one segment with Julie Schwartz, some old footage from the 70s or very early 80s. Julie Schwartz, Stan Lee going back and forth. I guess it was probably the 70s. I'm trying to imagine Stan Lee toupee at that moment. And Julie
I need
Schwartz,
the Tom Shilley cheat sheet.
Yeah.
What year was he wearing this toupee?
and Julie Schwartz, like, fighting tooth and nail that, comics should be this one thing. It's for kids. It shouldn't have all this political stuff, yada, yada, yada. So it's the gatekeeper who's keeping the comics dumb. And I've been on that comic strip tip in a massive way in 2023. Massive. Spend an hour a day reading comic strips pretty much. And during the heyday of the comic strip, there was a manga amount of subject matter that was being explored, from golf pros to soap opera to salarymen, as the Japanese call them. Every kind of economic stratum was being explored. And then you had your little funny animals, and then you had your little gag strips and stuff. But it could be that the syndicates have killed that opportunity too, man, of just the diversity of subject matters and materials, because there was an audience for that material. There was, until there wasn't, and they would probably consider that like the post Peanuts era, where Peanuts was such a gangbusters hit that they wanted more of that in the syndicates. Simpler. The overseas market is so gigantic, so you have to make stuff that caters to that. A very famous article when we were kids was somebody from like CBR going around with Jim Davis from Garfield. Remember that one, man? It was so good. The famous quote from Jim Davis was, "You take care of the cat takes care of you," with his ponytail. But
by the way, I just read Gary Hart's biography, and he says that about the gimmick.
That's funny. But the headspace has to be applied to creating a comic strip that could be funny in multiple languages now, and consumed, sort of one and done. So it sort of changed what the comic strip format of the day is, and I mean, they've effectively killed it. There was a time where people would buy newspapers because of the comic strips. That is as dead as territory wrestling now, and I put the onus on the powers that be, man. I put that on to the editors and the lazy people in administration that were trying to find another Peanuts.
It's interesting to think how much power the gatekeepers had. In both of those cases, we're looking at the top of being an editor or publisher, something like that, as being kind of the policy dictating.
Totally. I mean, they're the people giving you money to like make the strip.
And the beauty of today is, like, who are those people now?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you can find those comics that are about whatever subject, and if they're good, they can build an audience, and it doesn't have to be that editor. Hey, before we segue away from comic strips, I want to
let's do it, man.
Plug a book I've been reading this week and just enjoying the hell out of. 3 Rocks. This is Bill Griffith's latest. It's a biography of Ernie Bushmiller focused on his work doing Nancy. It's amazing, and it's been fun reading it because, like, I've read a couple of Tom Scioli's comics biographies lately, so there's some context here of, like, how do you do a biography in comics format. totally different approach, totally different cartoonist, totally different subject matter, but an absolutely fantastic read. And Bill Griffiths, man, that dude is like, it's another one of those examples. We say this a lot because it's, as I get older, it's more and more inspiring to me to find guys who are 60, 70 years old that are doing the best work of their careers. And I don't know, man. I think he's been good for a long time, so I don't know what's really his best. But this is absolutely amazing cartooning. I'm a big fan of Nancy, so getting this book, it's unbelievable. And I've been reading it around kayfabe and around different things. Like, I think I woke up this morning and read a dozen pages. It's so good on every single page that you can read it in these little bits and pieces.
Yes.
It's been fantastic. So highly recommend this. 3 Rocks, Bill Griffiths' latest biography, and just a fantastic, enjoyable read. And, you know, you speaking of comic strips, Nancy's just a standout. It's one of my favorites. So you get to see kind of Bushmiller's approach to doing dailies, doing standalone dailies, transitioning, by the way, you know, from Fritzy, the way the strip starts, to a completely different strip and character.
Right.
Really fantastic and interesting. And it follows, you know, like the nice thing with these history books, you get also like the backdrop is history of comic strips.
Yes.
You know, so it's been I was looking forward to this book, and it has really delivered. What a cartoonist.
We need to get Bill Griffith for a shoot interview sooner than later.
He came through Pittsburgh about 10 years ago or so.
Sure he did.
He gave a lecture, and we did a video on the notes from that lecture.
Yeah.
So if you guys are interested in how to make comics the Bill Griffith way, we have a video out there highlighting, I don't know, 40 points that he talks about, you know, things to do on a page, things to do in your comics. So check out that video. It's kind of a different perspective on thinking about making comics and comic strips.
That was a wild weekend, and at the time, which has proven completely 100% true, I was like aghast at the people behind the tables with us who did not put a little blanket over top of their shit and go off to listen to the man speak. And at the time I was like, these kids they're hopeless. Like they're not going to continue comics. They are here. It's hipster shit to them. They are here just for the fun of it. They're not in it to win it. And everybody who was at the talk, because it would be the people that the kayfabe audience would know, is they're taking notes and hanging on Bill Griffiths' every word. And 10 years have transpired. You don't even think about those people. They are fully out of comics. They're probably into axe throwing. You know, and that is after they transitioned out of escape rooms and being on bowling teams and shit like that, man. But at the time, Bill Griffith did his first big graphic novel. I forget what that one was called. But the thing is, the dude is still doing the daily strips, man. He's still doing a daily comic strip and finding the time to put together big books. That's the inspiring part. So all that like monthly deadline stuff, like I don't know exactly the ins and outs of like what you're saying, but if it's like do 5 pages a month or something, nah, I'm in the Bill Griffith camp, dude. Like do a fucking big book and do a strip every day. You know, that is an incredible work ethic, and his shit is just getting tighter and more solid. Now the cool thing about Zippy is that the Dadaist nature of Zippy. Let's say you're getting old. I'm not saying this is Bill Griffith. He's, as far as I know, super cogent, and you clearly are super into the book, and it's tight and it's good. But let's say that one starts to get a little touch of the dementia or something like that. A strip like Zippy, you could do that forever, and it could probably still work. You know what I mean?
Hey, here's the monthly deadline thing I was saying.
Yeah, let's hear it, because
in Marvel, DC, and anywhere else that's doing a monthly comic book, the number one thing, the most important thing is that I have 20 pages I can send to the printer at this date.
Yeah.
The quality of those pages is far second.
Yeah.
To I need the pages ready for the printer.
Okay. Yeah, I can get on.
It's out of whack. How about I need a good story?
Right.
I need good art. Now let's send it to the printer.
Yeah.
Instead, it's like, let's just send it to the printer. Who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Today's the deadline that it needs to go to the printer. Don't care how good it is.
There was the Future Shock documentary about 2000 AD where they speak with the editors and they lay it out. It's like, get it on time and try to make something good. It's second.
Yeah, and it's second down here.
Yeah. Man. So, yeah. Carl Burke's Conversations, Three Heads, Nancy, a lot of good stuff. to cover. And by, I'm reading this in my own time. You're reading that in your own time because these are big books. So the inevitable kayfabe episode
I can't wait to talk about
will
this
happen
because every page is beautiful. So it'll be great eye candy as well. And it's one of those great pieces where like it could just be what a Wikipedia comic, or it could be just talking heads, or it could be fantastic.
Right.
This is the fantastic version of that.
Yeah, super cool, man. I just got to show off the stack because we've hit the 3 tablets of Bristol threshold and beyond. Man, there's 76 strips done, and the goal is to have at least 100 done by Manga Quest 2023, which is November 14th is when I'm going to split. I think I can hit those marks. I still have all of October, still have a chunk of November and September. So I think I'll hit those marks. I'm going to start serializing it online on all of our social media and my own social media January 1st, 2024. But the stack is growing, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm serializing a bunch of this stuff on my Patreon right now to the early adopters. I think I got about almost 2 complete episodes up on the Patreon right now. Man, I put 4 strips up a week. I had a 5-strip week. I feel like I've hit a point where I'm getting more comfortable with the format of each of these singular pages and stuff. There's like a little joint right there. And by the way, this ain't no peanuts level of, like there's a lot of pencil mileage on the joint. Where I started being able to draw in pen rather than like pencil too much. And it ain't Kim Jong-ji where that dude is going in without a net, complete blank piece of paper. I can't do that. But in Procreate, I'll set up picture planes basically, man. Give the perspective grids of the area, give the faintest little kind of wire bubble frame of the characters. I think I spend maybe an hour and a half in Procreate maximum, and then generate the blue line, and then just fucking go straight to ink right over top, even with the backgrounds and stuff. If there's something a little complicated, some things stacked, I'll do some basic shapes. But it's been very, very comfortable and able to capture that spontaneous spirit that we talk about from the sketchbooks, trying to translate some of that to the final art. It's been a good week, man. I would call it a semi-breakthrough. But look, man, Warren is going to be here soon. See, they said his name 3 times fast, Jimmy. So
Well done,
so
everyone.
like I hear him coming. I hear the Warren mobile coming. So we got to split here pretty quick, man. But we should probably show off some of our books and stuff before we get out of here. Jimmy, you want to do the honors?
All right, guys, it's time to pre-order Street Angel Princess of Poverty from your local comic book shop. This will be out from Image Comics in November, and it collects all the Street Angel comics that are not in Deadliest Girl Live. So let your shop know that you want one of these things and let them know soon so that they can pre-order them and we'll know how many to print. I am getting ready to do a sale in October. It's kind of like my holiday sale, and it'll be primarily my self-published stuff from the last few months, which is True Crime Funnies, the 1986 zine, BW zine. I'll have some odds and ends, things that I've taken to Baltimore and come home with. Those will be available too, but it's October 26th is going to be the day of that sale, or at least when the sale starts. So put that on your calendar, and I will continue reminding you of that every week. But that's the next thing on my horizon.
Super cool. Once again, thank you guys so much for showing up and supporting the Hip Hop Family Tree Omnibus. It is the best book that I've made to date, and I can't wait to get this put onto your bookshelves and getting those numbers back, getting the feedback back from the booksellers and Amazons and the Barnes and Nobles and the comic shops. Way more than half of these, like about 3/4 of these, are accounted for at this minute, and the book ain't even out yet. So do not take for granted that you're going to see this, because we're looking at an inevitable sellout with the omnibus. It's not the only holiday book coming out. The X-Men Grand Design Trilogy is coming out. A couple of these volumes are out of print right now, so it'll be your way to get all of the X-Men Grand Design together. 2 trade paperbacks of Red Room are out there right now. This is my sort of current comic. I don't want to cover up the microphone. Murder on the Dark Web for Fun and Profit. We just finished Crypto Killers this past month, and we're looking at a 3rd trade paperback in January. So after the holidays, scrape together your little post-holiday cash. You take your Christmas money and you scoop up Red Room Crypto Killers, the trade paperback, man. A nice trilogy of outlaw, duotone, black and white, gritty ass comics. Jimmy, you got some final notes or messages you want to communicate before we get out of here?
I think that's everything.
And why don't you just give them the marching orders so that we could be on our way?
Read more comics.